Brighton has now beaten Manchester United 6 times in the last 7 Premier League meetings, and they've become the first team and the only other team since Manchester City to win 3 consecutive games at Old Trafford. They won it by 3-1. What kind of game was it, Janusz Michallik? And is it even a surprise anymore if Manchester United lose, especially against Brighton?
That's just it. For such a long time, we've been watching unraveling of a historic club like Manchester United that I'm not surprised at all. I was surprised that actually they beat Southampton, right? Amad Diallo last time. I mean, it looked, Southampton looked for long periods of time the better team. Here, I was going into this match and watching just before the game, obviously, the tribute to Dennis Law and all that. And I think to myself, man, I mean, if you can't get up for a game like this, what kind of game can you get up for, right? And never mind the final result, but, you concede a goal in the 5th minute after that. It's just incredible. Nothing surprised me with Manchester United anymore. I don't trust teams like Manchester United who can show up and get up for big games, be a cup of Premier League against the Manchester City, Liverpool, and then, turn around and lose to just about anybody, especially at Old Trafford, right? Was 6 losses in 9 games at Old Trafford. So it's just so easy to come in there. And I for one have zero expectations. It's just that the name itself makes you believe that they can play better than they are. And in my book, they have one good player.
Yeah, Bruno Fernandes, and we'll get to him shortly because I know you want to speak about him and what his future would look like at Old Trafford if this is what he's surrounding himself with or what he's surrounded by. It's not his choice. Let's get to the goals. Mitoma sets up Minter for the opening goal in 5 minutes. Now, this is not a personal attack on Harry Maguire, okay? But Harry Maguire's been given a new contract because he epitomizes what Ruben Amorim wants from his team, that passion, that leadership. But if Manchester United want to be back where Manchester United have been, Harry Maguire's not the answer. He was the one that was caught. He was the one that played everybody on side. And if there's one team, it's kind of that middle third of the table that you don't want to kind of leave gaps at the back because they can exploit. It's Brighton, and they did that so well. So it was a mess defensively for United and really well taken opening goal for Brighton.
Yeah, but I mean, there's so much goes into that goal. Him, keeping in line sometimes you off a little bit. I would look at it Mazraoui. I mean, on 2 goals, he falls asleep, right? Baleba, first and foremost, Baleba with a wonderful long ball, 0 pressure on the ball. And then Mazraoui see this run. And at that stage, you're not thinking, is he off? Is he on? Is Maguire keeping somebody on or not? As a defender, you can't think that, right? It's intuition. You're thinking you're keeping in line, but because of the rules that the referees are going to let that go, if you Mazraoui, you have to prevent Mitoma from playing the ball across. So I wouldn't put it on Maguire's plate. I'm going to put it on Mazraoui's, just as I would, was it that second goal, I think, on the far post as well, when that's being put away and it's played behind him and he's late in his reaction. And this is Mazraoui, who I think has been playing relatively well. If you look at Manchester United as a whole, it's unfortunate for him a little bit because jack of all trades. He can play as a wing, right back, center back in the 3, and a wing back at times. But he's been okay in my book. I've been pleasantly surprised, I suppose, if you can pick somebody. So just simple goals like that, and you just can't afford to do it. If you're any team, especially Manchester United at home, where you're trying to rebuild. The bottom line, Mark, here is we got to ask ourselves a question. It's too early, but I mean, have you seen anything different from the Ruben Amorim's team than you've seen under Ten Hag? And remember, we have to be honest here, because I, for one, and most of the people were very critical of Eric Ten Hag in the way they played. I will give Amorim, obviously, he's just gotten there. I'm not calling for his head just yet, that's for sure. But maybe they are a little bit braver. I like their reaction after they conceded the first goal, and even towards the end of the game, they were going after it. So fair play. They didn't put their heads down. Even the defense were responding at 3-1, which is unusual because that wasn't the case under Ten Hag. But I see basically no difference between Amorim and Ten Hag.
And that's that's the reason I said that I haven't seen much at all, apart from a change in formation. I think the Southampton game was simply papering over the cracks, and that's something that you and I and all of us at ESPN FC have spoken about, this huge Man United wallpaper that papers over a lot of cracks. We saw it under Solskjaer. We saw it under Ten Hag. It's happened time and time again. It's that don't deserve a result when it's a game you should be winning, like Southampton, but get the result. So not a case of all is fine, but then you think, well, okay, it's Brighton next. They haven't really learned their lesson. Now, what Amorim's trying to do, he's trying to deploy his formation in a system that the players have been brought for a certain other formation. That's an issue. They got back on level terms, 1-1. The only issue about this was Peter Banks took so long to decide it should have been a penalty. It's a clear foul on Joshua Zirkzee, and Bruno Fernandes scores to make it 1-1. Now, I'm not going to ask you about the penalty. I'm not going to ask you about the goal. I'm going to ask you about Bruno himself. We teased this earlier. He's the captain of the football club, and you've said he's their only good player. He's their best player.
Best player, I should say.
Best player, yeah, because they have got other good players. They just aren't playing very well right now. So is it a case of others have to not get up to his standard? Because that's going to be difficult, right? He is a super, super player. And I know you've watched him. He's outstanding when he plays for Portugal. But there's only so much he can do when he's surrounded by what he's surrounded by. What do you think he's thinking right now about how he can help others improve Manchester United? Or has the thought maybe crossed his mind, I can't do this. I need to be elsewhere?
It should. It's natural for a player like him, right? I mean, you know, he doesn't always come across perfectly, right? His body language that we've seen in the past, and that's why it's easy to have a go at him. But your job and my job is just to look at him, you know, in this situation as a player. And he's been patient. I think he's always worked hard. As I've said, maybe some of his reactions aren't great for a leader, for a captain. That's another thing. But as a player, in terms of what he does, what he tries to do, and the quality that he possesses, unfortunately, he's left alone there. I mean, there's not many players that you know, that he can play with. And let's just be honest here. I mean, you look at, you know, Onana. I mean, not just because of the mistake, but today, but those mistakes have been there, right? He's certainly not the sort of player that you build a team, a goalkeeper that you build a team around. We've said this here before. The defense, very questionable. The midfield, you saw a reaction from Amorim withdrawing Kobe Mainu and Uarte as well. You know, you have Fernandes, and then what? I mean, not one striker in the club, not one, right? Because, again, Højlund working extremely hard, but that's about it. And Zirkzee hasn't shown anything just yet. So here we are. This is Manchester United. We're looking at a team now who, once again, will not be in the Champions League. But of course, some will be playing. Well, we'll be saying it's Manchester United. Players will come, right? We've been saying that for how many years? It's not going to happen. So I think it's going to be that much more difficult, I think, for Ruben Amorim to build this team. The only way I see it is maybe recognizing or finding or scouting players, not the big time players because they're not coming, but younger players, maybe in Portugal, maybe elsewhere, and slowly but surely rebuilding Manchester United over time. And the bottom line is, when it comes to Bruno, Mark, is he going to want to wait that long? Does it make sense for him? If he was to say, I want to leave, I wouldn't blame him.
There will be Man United fans that are Man United everything, pro Man United everything. Understandably so. We're all the same with our own teams. We don't like criticism. There'll be honest fans that'll say, you know what, we can't complain. I'm going to give the Man United fans that are just really red-tinted specs a couple of stats, and it's up to you to know what to do with them. But here are the two stats for these really staunch Man United fans that won't have any criticism whatsoever about their team. And I don't think there's too many of them. I think most of them are realistic enough to know it's not the same as it was. The last time that Man United lost 6 home games in their first 12 in the league was 1893, right? That's not good. The other thing is, yes, they scored today from the penalty spot, scored by Bruno Fernandes. They did not have a shot on target from open play. The last time that happened was against Southampton in January 2016. So to those Manchester United fans that are very staunch and won't have any criticism of their team whatsoever, whether it's a minority or not, how do you justify those two stats? One since 1893 and the second since 2016, January 2016 against Southampton, without a shot on target from open play.
I suspect that every Manchester United fan understands, and it's critical. There aren't any fans that aren't critical of this team, but I promise. I promised myself that, I've stopped a while ago to bring it back in, Sir Alex Ferguson era and in the past in Manchester United, because the first thing that you have to recognize is just that. I mean, these players and this team are used to losing, and that's a big problem because big time teams don't do that. So there's probably some other incredible stats about Manchester United because, the history is so great that it's unthinkable, right? That's why we bring him up, because we're just not used to it. My generation, at the very least. But reality is such that it can happen to everyone. Look at Manchester City, this team, right? Going from unplayable to a team that is struggling to get points just about against anyone. So I think if you're a Manchester United fan, you understand where you are. There's going to be some patience, and again, Ruben Amorim is going to get another season, but it's going to be very much like Erik ten Hag. I think that pressure is going to be there for, next season to get Manchester United back at least to the Champions League spot, because I tell you, with every year not being there, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse.
One final stat about United, because I want to get on to Brighton, because for me, that's the story. The fact that they've won 6 of the last 7 against Manchester United and 3 consecutively at Old Trafford is fantastic. But Ruben Amorim has lost 7 of his first 15 games in charge in all competitions. That's the first Manchester United manager to do so since 1958. This isn't a quick fix. Is it even on the manager? I don't think it's on Amorim. This is a football club that's going to take time to get back to where it wants to be. Brighton, on the other hand, over the last few years, outstanding. Tony Bloom, Jamestown Analytics, his analytics company, identifying players, playing them, doing really well, selling them for loads of money, doing it again, rinse and repeat. You've got Mitoma, you've got Minta, you've got Joao Pedro, you've got Welbeck, who's someone who a few people have thought, no, he's past it. He's back from injury. He's scoring goals again. And they got their second goal. And you've spoke about Mazraoui's part in this one. I don't want to we've still got the Spurs-Everton game to get to as well. I don't want to linger too much on that, but I want to talk about the third goal. And it's a position of no trouble whatsoever. Should Andre Onanas' position as Manchester United's number 1 now come into question, given another high-profile error and given that his backup was so good against Arsenal in the FA Cup?
I think it's been under question as well, and he's probably, from what we're hearing, he's conflicted about how long he should stay there, and perhaps he wants to leave as well. So yes, I mean, he hasn't been consistent, and not easy for him. You look at the players that he's got in front, and the combinations under Ten Hag because of injuries were difficult to make. Now total change of system midway through the season as well, so that's not easy for a goalkeeper. But that's where I stopped making excuses for him, because yes, he's not trustworthy. When I watch him, of course, he's very much capable of making a great save, but it's the simple ones that you can't make. And today at 2-1, you just felt, even at 3-1, I want to give a little bit of credit to Manchester United. As I said, I felt that there was enough for United to get something out of that match. But that takes the wind out of you. That third goal, any third goal, but specifically like that. So yes, I mean, I'd be surprised if Onana was at Manchester United next season.